I appreciate everybody joining us here. Good morning and welcome to session 4 of our AI Evolution series. I'm Marty King. I'm the founder and CEO of AI-X, and we've made it to the 4th one here. So in this session, this is what we've been building towards, right? So whether you attended all 4 sessions or you're just joining for the first time, welcome and thank you. Everybody, we have covered across this series. We've covered the data, the diagnostics, the people journey, and really all converges here. So today we're going to put it all on the table and give you a framework that you can start working on this afternoon or tomorrow if you'd like. So here we are on the arc here. In session 1, we had the deployment gap. We revealed the 85 to 5 problem. 88% of organizations have deployed AI and roughly only 5% have scaled that. Believe it or not, that stat still holds true. Although there is some movement being made, I'm really curious to see what that's going to look like when we start taking inventory around the summertime and definitely towards the end of the year. But unfortunately, we're still at that 88 to 5 point, and there's an 83-point gap that really defines the competitive landscape in this year. In session 2 was the 3X factors. We had the equation and the weightings. We have people. Your focus on your people is 50% of the equation, technology 20, and then process re-engineering and optimization is 30. And the diagnostic that explains why identical AI tools produce completely different results across organizations that otherwise look similar from the outside. In session 3, this was the AI evolution journey or your people journey. We went inside that 50% and we mapped the 3 stages of AI maturity, from tool user to thought partner to co-intelligence. And we gave you some of the techniques to move your workforce and yourselves through each transition. And now finally today in session 4, this is the operating system, the 4 phases. There's 33 initiatives. There's a continuous loop. And this is where our methodology can be the basis of your roadmap. I just want to preface this in that we have less than an hour to cover all of this. This is our proprietary methodology that we bring to the table for our clients. I'm giving you it in a distilled fashion and trying to keep it as agnostic as possible so that you can take the concepts and use them themselves. And then if you'd like to reach out to us after the fact for some additional help, that's kind of like the idea behind all of this. I'm going to show you what you need to do. The how is really kind of the special sauce, and we can get into that a little bit deeper. At the end of this session, we're going to talk about some of the things we're going to be putting in place to help support you guys moving forward. I've had a lot of people reach out to me in between these sessions looking for specific feedback and specific help at an individual level and even at an enterprise level. So what we're going to do is create a support structure, a mastermind group, if you will, that we're going to put on every month that you can be part of, where we're sharing ideas and concepts and those sort of things. So I'll touch upon that at the end of this, but this is by no means the end of the road for us in the AI journey. So before we get into the 4 phases, we want you to understand the 2 commitments that really hold this entire operating system together. The first is the encoded organizational identity, or we call it DNA encoding. And it's the 6 elements of your organizational DNA encoded directly into the AI systems that your people will be using every day. Your purpose, your values, your core customer, your core competencies, your services and products that you're bringing to the market, the commitments that you're making to your clients in terms of your brand promises or guarantees or warranties, or what they can expect by engaging you and experiencing that engagement with you, and your key differentiator. And when all of those are embedded, the AI produces the outputs that it provides your organization are authentic, right? It's rooted in your ethos. And so when those are missing, what you typically get are generic AI producing generic results, right? And generic results don't necessarily compound and create that compounding intellectual intelligence, the intellectual capacity that we're looking to build upon incrementally over time, right? We see it all the time. We're seeing it's being inundated on our social media platforms, LinkedIn in particular, where you're seeing the same type of stuff time and time again, very generic outputs. I'm sure you're seeing it internally in your organizations too, where you can now start picking up stuff that is unique or just typically AI generated, right? And that is not authentic. And the value in that is really starting to be questioned, right? We're all getting used to that. The floor is definitely getting lower and lower with that, where this authenticity and your special sauce and what makes you important needs to be woven into these incredible capabilities that are coming out literally every day. So I digress there a little bit, but moving forward, the second part is the continuous loop, right? So AI Expand, which is your continuous innovation, feeds your AI Examine perpetually. AI Examine, we're going to get into that, where the AI Expand is your continuous innovation. Your AI Examine is where you're examining your organization, you're performing the diagnosis, you're examining everything, people, process, technology, your strategic direction, those sort of things. Those feedbacks are going back into that, where you can continuously refine. Setting a strategy for a year or 2 years and working towards that incrementally is no longer part of the process now. It has to be iterative cycles on a repeat basis throughout the year so that you can stay ahead of your competitors and really take advantage of the opportunities that AI is affording us. So each cycle builds upon the previous learning. Compounding is operational, measured, and sustained. So these two commitments are paired by design, right? The DNA encoding gives the loop something so specific to compound on, right? And the loop keeps the DNA current. So everything that follows depends on these two commitments being real and authentic. So maybe you've seen this before if you've attended the 3 sessions, right? This is the central equation to the entire methodology. People multiplied by AI. It isn't people plus AI. It is that relationship. It's multiplicative, right? We are multiplying our capability and capacity with our relationship with AI. This is the operating system for a strategic evolution. This phrase is the spine. Every phase we talk about today serves this. Everything we build, everything we measure, everything we coach comes back to this single idea that your people, amplified by AI, create a capacity that has never existed before in your organization. So the core problem is not technology implementation. The core problem is human capacity, right? And that is a lesson that a lot of organizations are learning the hard way. From your Fortune 250 all the way down to your sole proprietor down the street, right? Failure to scale is almost always a failure for workforce absorption. And what do we mean by that? It's your people's ability to accept, right, adopt and apply this technology in a meaningful way within their careers and within your organization, right? This is the finding that reshapes everything we build. Organizations that lead with technology and backfill with training are 1.6 times more likely to miss their ROI targets. Deloitte recently published that across 9,000 respondents in 2026, the ones leading with their people are 7 times more likely to reach AI maturity. Boston Consulting Group and Columbia Business School confirm that with their studies. So the operating system starts with your people always. So people times AI equals that new capability or capacity that we're talking about, right? It's about transforming how work gets done to create exponential outcomes while rooted in your humanity, right? The last phrase really matters. Rooted in your humanity, right? Your humanity as a person, but also the ethos, right? The purpose of your organization. It's rooted in all of that. We are not automating your organization. We're amplifying it, right? There's too much talk about amplification. It's the race to the bottom. Automation. I see it as a race to the bottom. It's a law of diminishing returns, where you're looking to eliminate the human and automate with the machine, and they're totally missing the boat on this, right? We are not automating organizations, we are amplifying, right? The things that make you different, your judgment, your expertise, your values, those become more powerful when AI multiplies them. Remove the humanity and you have a very efficient system producing outcome no one in your organization recognizes or trusts. Nor do your customers, your investors, your partners, right? Everything is rooted in this. The diagnostic is the backbone. For those of you who are with us in session 2, this is a quick reinforcement. For everybody else, this is the framework that governs everything downstream. People, change readiness, adoption, and human mastery. Technology, the frontier model relationships, and the tool readiness, process, systemic workflow redesign, and evaluation. People always come first, and the sequence is never reordered, right? The old order was people, process, technology. This is people, AI. We're talking about AI here, and then your processes, right? And the weighting always stays 50% of your focus are in your most important asset, still your people, 20% on the technology, the frontier model, and then 30% really defining those methodologies and finding ways to amplify those or to fundamentally transform them. Right? This is the diagnostic reality that we have observed across every engagement, and it's what drives every single decision, what you're about to see. So 50%, right? The technology is 20, process is 30, human readiness accounts for half the equation. This is the ceiling, right? Your AI initiatives will go exactly as far as your people's capability to absorb it go, right? You can buy the best tools in the world and partner with the best system integrators and redesign every process in your workflow catalog. But if the humans who operate the system can't absorb the change, your investment is going to fail or miss the mark, right? So the methodology that we're going to show you today is designed around that reality. So these are the components of our methodology. We have it branded, but I'll explain what they are to you right here. We have AI-Examine, AI-Explore, AI-Execute, and AI-Expand. They're 4 phases. Each one builds upon the one before it, and the 4th phase feeds back into the first to create a continuous loop. And so we're going to walk through each one of these phases and show you what happens inside and explain the sequence and why it matters. Some of you may be tempted to skip to execution, and we'll talk about why that instinct, and as understandable as it is the exact conditions that are causing AI initiatives to fail. So let us start where everything starts, and that's examining your organization. So in phase 1, we capture your organizational identity. 3 things happen in this phase. We measure your current readiness, we encode your identity into the systems, and we establish that baseline. Right? Every organization that comes to us has some version of the same story. We've been experimenting with AI. We have a handful of champions. We have a lot of interest, and we don't really know exactly where we stand. So AI-Examine answers that question with precision. We map your current state across all 3 of the X factors, and we determine your exact position on the AI maturity model. And then we quantify the deployment gap that you're experiencing that's basically stalling the progress that you're looking to make. So the diagnostic work in AI-Examine feeds directly into AI-Explore, and where we design the commitment, we anchor your strategy to the identity, and we define the breakthrough goal. Building the accountability architecture, we will get there, but for now, understand that AI-Examine produces the raw material that AI-Explore needs. So, and that strategy flows into AI-Execute, where we build the capacity before the deployment, and then we activate the operating model, navigate to the manager pivot, and then empower our workforce. And we're going to cover all of those in detail. We get into AI-Expand, right? So this is where we start to scale and compound. We transition to operational ownership, right? Sustain exponential returns in those outcomes, and we activate that continuous loop. So that's the arc. And now let us go, I'm going to go deep into each one of these phases, starting where it all begins. And that is AI-Examine. This is the foundation of organizational AI. This is the most underestimated phase. And leaders often want to move past this, right? It's a little ethereal, right? It isn't really talking specifically to the technology. They want to go right to the deployment, right? And they want to show results to the board on the investments that they made back in 2025 and really want to get over that hump as to why they're not seeing that in 2026. So every one of those instincts are valid and totally understand those, right? We empathize with this. But the problem is that the speed without the foundation produces the 95% pilot failure rate that MIT documented in 2025, and it was validated back in first quarter of 2026. Their study found that 95% of AI pilots fail to reach production scale, right? The number one reason cited, insufficient organizational readiness, right? So AI-Examine exists to solve the problem before it starts. So here's the trap. Most companies rush to buy AI tools and end up with generic capabilities, right? We start by making the AI think like you, right? Let me repeat that. Most companies rush to buy the shiny object, right? We all get enamored by the shiny object, or some people call it the silver bullet to ail all the problems that we have, and they end up with generic capabilities, right? We talked about, we can see that in our daily lives. As you pick up your phone and look at your social media feeds, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, it's being inundated with just generic AI. We'll call it work slop, right? In the work environment, we call it work slop. I don't know what we call it out in social media. Maybe one of you guys can tell me what that is at the end when we chit chat. But we start by making AI think like you. And this is the single biggest insight that we've learned working with mid-market companies and Fortune 1000s. The executives who succeed at AI, scaling AI, don't start by evaluating tools. They start by encoding who they are into the systems they plan to use. They do that homework up front. If they don't have it, we have the process to really help organizations walk through that process to define those. So think about it this way. If you hand a new hire a laptop and say, hey, go produce great work, without teaching them your values, your customer, your voice, your standards, what do you get? You get a technically acceptable output that misses the mark on everything that makes your company, right? I had a post earlier this week that I said, we take great pains to onboard really great resources, right? And I said, listen, you wouldn't do this with a 100K per year employee. Why would we do it with a 100K per month platform? It's the same thing, right? That's the difference between AI and these deterministic tools. It's not a CRM. It's not Excel. It's not your ERP system. It's a very different tool. It's more or less a coworker, right? So we need to onboard them on in the same fashion. So without your identity, AI makes decisions that are technically correct, strategically wrong. AI-Xccelerate captures your organizational DNA. We encode it in the systems, ensuring that every subsequent output is aligned with your unique reality and rooted in your humanity, right? In the ethos of your company. So think about that word, subsequent. Every output from this point forward, the investment you make in encoding pays forward into every AI interaction your organization has. Every email drafted, every strategy analyzed, every customer touch point generated, all of it now carries your DNA, right? And this is the compound interest on identity. And this is really where it starts. So let's take a look at the 6 elements. I call it the 6-pack core, right? If you're an athlete or anyone, right, we're getting up there in age, right? Those of us who are Gen Xers and even boomers, right? We talk about you really need to have a strong core, right? Because the core is where it all starts, right? It just so happens that we have 6 of these, so I call it the 6-pack core, right? And these are the 6 elements that feed into the AI core. Your core purpose, your core commitment, so brand promises to your clients, your core competencies, those are your capabilities and services, right, that you're bringing to the market, your core values that everything's rooted in, the core differentiator, what makes you strategically different in the marketplace, and why companies would want to go, clients would want to go with you versus your competitors, right? And then who is your core customer? Who are you serving in that marketplace? We need to know all of that. Each of these are captured through a structured discovery process. We interview your leadership, we analyze your existing artifacts, we observe how your organization actually makes decisions. We encode all of that into a format that AI systems can reference in real time. The result is an AI core that knows who you are, right? So when you generate a customer proposal, it sounds like you. When you analyze a strategic opportunity, it weighs the factors that you weigh and your team weighs. When it drafts internal communications, it carries your internal voice. We get it from an enterprise level, a functional level, a departmental level, a team level, and even at the individual level. So we start with a concentrated burst at discovery and then continuously improve and compound our institutional intelligence, right? AI-Xccelerate on the left, strategy in the middle, expansion on the right. The arrow flows perpetually. Your first pass through AI-Xccelerate, that's the deepest, right? We're laying the foundation. That's the foundational mode. Every pass after that is the delta mode, right? Measuring what has changed since the last cycle and where do we need to adjust. This means your organizational intelligence, you're compounding, right? You're not waiting monthly, you're not waiting quarterly, you're not waiting annually. We all know, right? The best of us, you put together your strategy, you get caught into the whirlwind, and next thing you know, right, you might be off course, you're readdressing your strategy maybe every 6 months at the best, right at the end of the year. This is happening on a continuous basis and compounding. Each loop refines your DNA encoding. Each loop sharpens your maturity baseline, and each loop makes your system smarter about who you are and where you stand. And guess what, guys? We're talking about AI here, and it's very important for AI, but the residual effect is you're doing all the things that make the great companies great, right? This practice is not only you're doing it with for AI, but you're now forcing you to do it within your company and have everybody thinking in this process, right? The exponential outcomes is when you're marrying the two together, right? I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's the ethos of this methodology. So in loop one, it's the foundational mode, right? We extract that organizational data, we establish the baseline across your people, AI, and processes. We map it to internal deployment gaps. This is the deep work that requires dedicated time, executive participation, and rigorous honesty as to where you stand, right? And we have tools that AI that really helps with this and accelerates this process and really facilitates that with the executives, right? So it isn't so much of a nosebleed or a root canal or whatever analogy you want to use. We really try to make it as interactive and as precise and exact as we can, because we know time is money, and it's no different now. In fact, it's probably means even more now than ever. In loop two, right, we go beyond that, and it's now the delta mode. We detect shifts in the AI landscape. We measure organizational evolution. We spot the gaps between yesterday's strategy and today's reality, right? So the delta mode is a little lighter, it's faster, and it's designed to run continuously, right? So you're constantly calibrating. The investment pays forward because the foundational mode builds the instrumentation that makes the delta more efficient. So as I'm talking to you about the tools that we bring to the table, the artifacts that are coming out of that are AI enabled. They're dynamic, they're living, they're not static, right? So each loop through, you're building upon that and compounding upon that. We evaluate readiness across the 3 X factors. Again, people, AI, and process. We determine your exact position on the AI maturity model, and we quantify the deployment gap. Each of these produces a score, and each score maps to a specific band on the maturity model. And the composite gives your leadership team, right, a very clear picture of where you are versus where you need to be. No narratives, no qualitative impressions, numbers validated against benchmarks and from comparable organizations. We also measure your existing risk before you attempt to scale. Organizations that rush to deployment without understanding their current risk exposure create governance problems that compound faster than the benefits, right? We establish a clear picture of current AI experimentation, identifying blind spots in governance, security, and risk exposure before building the strategy, right? We have the problem of bring your own AI to work taking place. It's happening whether you know it or not. It's shadow AI. You have employees coming to the table or coming to work with their own versions of AI. I would bet that most of them are the free version that expose tremendous risk to your organization. And now you're starting to probably experience some of that work slop due to the level of maturity in which they're engaging within that tool, right? So this gives you an opportunity to take inventory of what's happening, an honest inventory, and give you a clear line of sight as to where you need to go and what gaps you need to close before you move forward, right? Every gap is surfaced. Every vulnerability is documented before the first initiative is approved. Excuse me. So like I said, these are living instruments. They're not static reports. They're encoded with your organizational DNA. We have maturity baselines. The deployment gaps are working instruments that your organization queries and updates continuously. They live within your systems. Your teams interact with them, and they evolve as your company evolves. We are building an institutional intelligence platform for you while we go through this, right? Traditional assessments create a PDF. That goes right in a drawer or in a file system somewhere. It gets referenced once during budget season. These are instruments that are active participants in your daily operations. So again, humans decide, AI augments. AI accelerates data synthesis and surfaces patterns. AI never authors organizational identity, right? Humans make every strategic call and judgment. And this is not a disclaimer. This is a design principle. Every initiative in the methodology is built so that the AI amplifies human judgment and never replaces it. The moment AI starts making decisions on behalf of your leadership team is the moment you've lost control of your strategy, your identity, and the soul of your company. So examination ends with a clear decision checkpoint, right? The phase review delivers a clear vision, positioning your organization to build an AI strategy built in your reality, right? This is a formal gate. Your leadership team reviews the diagnostic findings, the DNA encoding, the maturity baselines, the risk assessment, and then they make the go forward decision, right? Are we ready to design the commitment? And that question leads us to AI-Xccelerate, right? AI-Xccelerate is exploring the possibilities of AI and what opportunities are in front of us, right? In other words, strategy development, right? So this is the architecture of execution. We're translating that organizational ambition into a living, interconnected engine for AI adoption. If AI Examine is the foundation, AI-Xccelerate is now the blueprint, right? This is where your organization answers the question, given who we are and where we stand, what are we going to build? How are we going to use AI? Right? And the word is build. The build is deliberate. We're not writing a strategy document. We're building an execution architecture. It has to be that, right? Again, it's not a deterministic platform like CRM or Excel or an ERP system, right? Every output from this phase is a working instrument that flows directly into your into AI execute, where you start to execute the strategy. So strategy is not a working document, not a filed report, right? Phase, we're introducing the blueprint phase of the continuous loop, where the intent becomes the architecture, right? How many strategic plans have you seen that looked brilliant on paper, but never survived the first contact with reality, right? In AI, this problem is amplified because the landscape shifts every 30 days. If we're right? Every 30 days conservatively, reality materially, 60-90, right? So at the very least, it's quarterly. We're recommending that you do this every 30 days. A written strategy written in January can be obsolete by April last month, right? So AI-Xccelerate solves this by building a strategy as a living instrument that updates in that continuous loop. So we anchor the strategy in who you are. We ignore the industry's trends and all the hype, right? A technically sound strategy fails if it doesn't feel like you. Every decision is tested against your organizational DNA before we lock it in, right? Every AI strategy firm in the market starts with industry benchmarks. They look at what your competitors are doing, right? And then they build your strategy around external signals or the capabilities of the tool, right? They start with the tool first and what your competitors are doing. We start from a different point. We need to find out, right, who you are, the ethos of your company, and we root all of it within who you are and what makes you uniquely different, right? We anchor it in who you are first, your DNA, your purpose, your differentiator, your customer. Once that foundation is locked, then we consider the external signals, because a strategy that perfectly mirrors your industry and violates your identity will be rejected by your workforce, right? There's enough hype and fear around AI. You start doing things like this, you're just going to compound the situation. And you're jeopardizing the soul of your company if you decide to do this, right? They'll feel it and they will resist it. So the 7 working outputs that flow forward into the integrated roadmap. We have vision, goal, model, change, owners, and your backlog. Each of these is a standalone working instrument. Each one connects to the others, and all of them synthesize into an integrated roadmap that your teams will execute against. A 12-month commitment to an exponential outcome, validated through 3 tests for our true human-machine collaboration, tracked on a scorecard that downstream teams will query on a daily basis, right? The breakthrough goal is not an OKR, it's not a KPI, it is a 12-month commitment that is specific enough to be measured, ambitious enough to require AI to achieve, and human enough to require your people to steer it, right? The 3 tests validate it. Does it require AI to achieve? Does it require AI, humans to guide? Does it create an exponential value? If the answer to all 3 of these are yes, you have a breakthrough goal, right? If you and AI are creating a breakthrough goal, something that neither you could do on your own, nor could AI, but both of you together, that's your breakthrough goal. That's your exponential outcome. The AI vision summary defines your medium-term capability state. It gives you the 12-month breakthrough goal its meaning, right? The breakthrough goal is your next 12 months. The vision summary is your 3-year horizon. What does your organization look like when AI is fully integrated into your operations? What does that evolution look like? What capabilities exist that do not exist today. That vision gives the breakthrough goal its direction. You are not optimizing for 12 months. You're building towards a 3-year state that the breakthrough goal advances. We say 3 years, again, conservatively, we say 2 to 3 years. Anything beyond that, it's just wishing, right? Even 2 years to 3 years, who knows what the capabilities of AI are going to be? We have quantum computing. We have next level intelligence that everybody's striving for here. Nobody knows, right? So we talked about back in the day, a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal that was made famous by Jim Collins. That was your 15 to 20-year aspirational goal. Forget about it. Those days are over. With AI, if you're committed to AI, you're looking at a 24 to 36 month. That's the max you can do. It's just changing that fast. So we have 4 forces, 1 coherent system. Leadership, I've got some more slides to go here, so I'm going to blow through it. Leadership sets the intent and role models for change. If your executive team is not visibly, consistently using AI on their own, the rest of the organization will read that signal, right, and just call it a trend. You have the lab. This is the one that runs experiments and holds the technical depth, right? They test the new models, they validate the capabilities, they translate technical possibility into business reality, right? And then we want to be crowdsourcing the innovations, right? We empower our people, we get that relationship going, we get the AI maturity up to thought partner and co-intelligence. Now we've got that collective co-intelligence humming along, and now we're crowdsourcing innovation, right? And the next breakthrough goal or exponential outcome. Adopts the capability, scales it to impact. This is the 80% of your workforce that will ultimately determine whether your AI investment scales or stalls. And then lastly, the AI Center of Excellence. We've all heard of these. You're going to need it for AI. This is more of a governance model, right? To govern behavior, manage that risk, and ensure optimization, right? The Center of Excellence is that connective tissue. This is huge. This is where we think is going to be a game changer for companies that execute at this level. It's what we bring to the table, and frankly, what differentiates us from a lot of the folks out there. And this is where we get down into, we break things down by function and by process, and we identify leads to own those business metrics, right? They ensure that the AI capabilities actually deliver the value for their specific department or function. The process leads own the mechanics, right? They monitor the model performance, they detect drift, they manage risk for the individual workflows. Every AI capability your organization has a named human who is accountable for its performance. I'll say that again, I don't care if you're building agents, autonomous workforces, humans have to be accountable for the performance and the outcomes, right? No exceptions, no committees, one person's name on every single line responsible for what this is doing, right? So we integrate the transition strategies for distinct adoption cohorts. Your early adopters will move differently from your skeptics, right? And your power users will move differently from your casual experimenters. Each cohort has to get targeted strategically. We talked about that during the organizational readiness in the different cohorts. I won't get into that due to time, but we need to activate managers to lead the adoption pivot, right? The managers are the multipliers. If they're leading the change, it scales, right? If they're blocking it, it stalls, right? So when we prepare the ground before the technology even arrives, the capability building starts before the deployment, right? That is the methodology's prime directive. Invest in capabilities and kill that pilot purgatory, right? Found that 95% of pilots fail to reach production at scale. We call that pilot purgatory, right? Organizations running 15, 20, 30 experiments with no connection to a central goal, no governance, no exit criteria, right? It's a buckshot approach. We use the use case backlog to solve this by scoring every candidate by value, feasibility, risk, and adoption readiness. Each one is anchored strictly to the breakthrough goal, right? And you prioritize a small number of these early lighthouse wins. We use that term lovingly. Throwback to my old company, Gurna Consulting, a lighthouse out of Plymouth Harbor. We call those the lighthouse wins. Master the sequence that the teams will execute against. Highly structured, yet infinitely revisable based on the reality on the street. This is the synthesis. Vision, goal, model, change, owners, backlog. All of them are converging into a single integrated roadmap, right? And your teams now have a shared execution plan that every stakeholder can see, query, and track. We have the foundational loop one, building that complete strategic base and commitments from scratch. The Delta mode, the Loop 2 and beyond, recalibrating instantly based on the new realities, the landscape shifts, and the adoption evidence right out in the field. Your strategy recalibrates every time the loop cycles. New models release, new capabilities, thresholds, new organizational data. The strategy absorbs all of it and adjusts real time. So once your architecture is locked, then it's ready to build. How are we doing for time? All right, we've got about 20 minutes. So execute. The architecture of execution translation, translating your organizational ambition into a living, interconnected engine for AI adoption. This is where the rubber meets the road. Everything we designed in the AI Explore, the strategy piece, now gets built, deployed, and made real in the daily lives of your people. Right? This is the plans don't change the business, the capability do. Right? Let me say that again. Your plans don't change the business, the capabilities do. This is the heaviest operational lift of the journey. We're converting paper charters into working centers, plans into lived experiences, and strategy into a deployed power, right? A key differentiator, right? And I want to be direct with you. This is the phase where organizations discover what they're made of, because it's not easy, right? We need to build that capability first, like we said, right? Do not deploy AI into a workforce that's not ready to absorb it. Human capacity must be built into depth before widespread deployment begins. This is the prime directive of the entire execution phase. And if it's the single most counterintuitive move in the methodology. Every instinct in your organization will push you to deploy the technology first and train the people second. And the Deloitte data tells you exactly what happens if you follow that instinct. You are 1.6 times more likely to miss your ROI targets. And as we talked about 2 weeks ago, the price of AI is increasing, right? As compute becomes more scarce, right? The costs are going to go up. People-ready workforce maturity. When your people are ready, the workforce maturity advances. The culture shifts from hesitant to engaged, right? The technology is operational. The systems are selected, validated, and integrated into your daily workflows. Notice that sequence, right? People-ready comes first. Technology comes second, right? Your processes need to be baselined. Existing operations are documented and prepared for systematic redesign, right? We talked about paving the call path. We're laying the foundation for some revolutionary stuff, some transformative stuff to happen within some of these processes that you've been doing for over a decade. And why? Because we've always done it that way. You now have new capabilities and capacity to look at things through a completely different lens, right? So we need those processes documented and known, right? You can't redesign a process that you have not documented. And so this is how we build it and govern. Right? Operating model charter. The leadership up the top, right? They provide the direction and commitment. The lab at the bottom left, technical experimentation and frontier evaluation. Stuff's happening every week. People with their finger on the pulse of what's happening in the AI landscape. Your crowd at the bottom right. The workforce engagement and capacity building, right? The crowdsourcing, as we start building the crowdsourcing and the ideation starts happening from there, right? And the AI Center of Excellence is at the center. And this is the operational deployment and risk governance, right? It's the necessary evil of all of it, right? It's your security, it's your regulations, it's your government mandates, the rest of it, right? You need to keep that solid in the center, right? So this is the charter we designed for AI Explore and now activated as a functional structure. So real people and real roles and accountability. So we teach the AI how your company thinks. AI must share your organizational DNA, and if it doesn't reflect your values, the workforce will reject it. We got that. Platform integration connects to your existing systems. We activate guardrails to enforce your policies in real time. Right? Company knowledge creates a retrieval layer rooted in your actual institutional intelligence. Systems rules translate your governance decisions into operational constraints. I'm going to blast through this. This has to do with autonomous AI. Let's just, for the sake of time, move through that quickly. Right? So we need to guide the human transition. And we talked about this, the manager pivot, equipping mid-level leadership to become adoption drivers. Right? Again, we're seeing this out in the marketplace now. You're seeing a lot of the management layers being stripped out in favor of autonomous AI. It is counterintuitive in our eyes. These are the key people who are going to drive that exponential outcome and the transformative nature of AI within your organizations, right? So we need to equip mid-level leadership to become adoption drivers. Adoption cohorts Adoption cohorts, engaging distinct segments of your workforce differently based on their readiness and skepticism. We talked about that earlier, but we need to be very focused and address the key aspects of your workforce, right? We talked about the generational differences between different cohorts within your company. It could be within the function or their role within the firm. We need to address all of that, right? So then we get into reality activation, intervening directly into the field to dissolve those barriers and embed new capabilities into daily habits, right? And so this is the coaching point of the work. And this is where your managers really make a difference. So here, vertical functions meet horizontal processes. This is huge. Functional ownership, AI function leads hold vertical accountability. They own the overarching KPIs. They coordinate the resources. They track the capability outcomes against their specific department's maturity. Your process owners, all the process leads hold the horizontal accountability. They own the specific use cases from end to end. They monitor the model performance. They track the adoption, and they manage the risk in the front lines, right? So it's completely unambiguous. You have it at the functional layer and you have it at the process layer. And we build the momentum through these targeted wins, right? Those lighthouse pilots that we talked about. We do not execute on a massive, risky, big bang software launch, right? Oh, let's just roll out Copilot to everybody and, the best. Nope, right? We've seen it time and time again, or we're seeing it time and time again. High value, high visible capabilities are deployed to production first. Early success proves the value and informs all future building. This is not rocket scientist. This stuff has been in place for as long as I've been in business and forever, right? This is old school change management, but tweaked to the reality of what AI is bringing to us today. The lighthouse wins go first. They prove that the model works. They build confidence and they generate the adoption stories that move the middle majority, right? You're going to have your early adopters. You're going to have your laggards. We are now targeting, right, the silent majority in the middle, the show me folks that are in your organization that's saying, all right, I'm not going to dedicate my time and energy to this unless anything really works and isn't the latest trend du jour out there that leadership has pushed upon us. Okay. With that, we have the lighthouse pilots flowing nicely. We need to have a continuous heartbeat, right, in place for this to live and to survive, right? So deployed AI generates behavioral instantly. This rhythm captures that data to continuously optimize the system, right? We need to have that rhythm and that heartbeat of interaction between ourselves and the tools that we can compound that at microcycles that are eventually going to grow into large ones, right? So we have 4 rhythms, sprint cadence for the tactical build, weekly evolution for check-ins, monthly management reviews, and quarterly strategic refresh. 4 rhythms, each one nested inside like a little Russian doll, right? They're all nested inside. The sprint handles the build, the weekly handles the blockers, the monthly handles the metrics, and your quarterly handles the strategy. Structure and staff function as one. Your center of excellence for governance, deployed AI for technology, your ready workforce for human capacity, and at the center, here's your operational reality. This is what it looks like when all 4 forces are functioning as a coherent system. The loop is now self-reinforcing. So the capabilities built here generate the behavioral data that we will use to scale and optimize and refine the next loop. Let me get into expand. I'm going to blow through this pretty quickly so we can answer some questions. But the technology projects, let me get back to this just quickly here, right? So in AI-Xccelerate in phase 4, now we have AI-Expand, moving from building AI to the compounding value that is perpetual. This is the phase that most organizations really never reach. And it's the phase that really separates the AI deployment from an AI evolution, right? Moving from an AI deployment to an AI evolution. So the technology projects end, we've all been there, right? But the intelligence grows. This phase converts your AI foundation into a system that generates exponential value over time. Every other phase has a completion milestone. AI-Expand doesn't complete, it compounds, right? Your AI capability is not a project with a start date and an end date. It's a compounding asset that grows more valuable with every cycle. So when human and AI intelligence become one system, this is the capacity threshold, right? The moment when thinking with AI becomes the default way your people work, a new organizational capability that didn't exist before you started. Right? This is not about counting software licenses. This is about the moment when the question is, should I use AI for this? Right? It disappears and becomes, excuse me, let me repeat that. It's the moment when the question, should I use AI for this, disappears because AI is already woven into how you people think, create, decide, and execute. And this is what we call co-intelligence. Okay, so operating reality, it's a continuous loop. Execute, learn, expand, compound, adapt, and then cycle through it again. This is the engine that keeps the compounding asset alive. Without the loop, your AI capability degrades, right? Models become outdated, workflows calcify, and people revert to old habits. And this loop prevents all of it. So we have 5 change signals that feed this loop, right? The engine never stops learning. It continuously monitors 5 distinct warning lights and growth triggers that keep your strategy aligned with what's happening in reality. The tech landscape. There's constantly new models, new costs, new regulatory shifts. Your values check. When AI behavior drifts from your core DNA, right? We talk about hallucinations. It's very easy for this to drift off of the core DNA, right? That's important to have the guardrails in place and the checks in place to ensure that integrity. The pace. How fast is your company adapting and moving through the learning loops, right? The organization, leadership shifts, business model evaluation or evolution. The reality gap. When your old strategy doesn't match the real world, this is the most critical signal. AI spots the signals, humans make the choices, right? AI will never author your business decisions. It provides you the data so your leadership can steer the compounding asset, right? This brings us full circle to the human agency primacy, right? The loop generates the signal, AI surfaces the patterns, and humans make every decision about what to do with that signal. So a structured cadence to govern the growth, we go through it again, like monthly, quarterly, and annually. So this phase executes a deliberate transition to your internal team, right? The knowledge transfers, the support structures are locked in, the external consultants step back, right? And the compounding intelligence remain yours. AI-X isn't designed to be a permanent, or AI-Xcelerate isn't designed to be a permanent dependency. We built the system, we coach the transition, we hand you the keys, and your internal team operates the compounding asset moving forward, right? This is the test of a real operating system. It runs on your team and in your culture and on your terms. So the value must be measured in time, not licenses. We don't measure success on how many tools we bought. We measure it by how fast an investment turns into an exponential business value. This is what the AI-Xcelerate operating system provides. It's 4 phases, 33 initiatives, 1 continuous loop, DNA encoded, human-led, exponential by design, right? The organizations that will lead the next 3 years are the ones building the system now. They're encoding their identity, they're building their people's capacity, they're deploying with governance, and they're compounding the returns over time. The gap between deployment and scaling is closing, right? So the question is whether your organization is on the right side of that gap. So thank you for that. I have 5 minutes for questions. I will hang out and answer all the questions that you have. Open it up for questions. One thing I would like to do though is to add one more thing. I think we got a couple of minutes left here. Give me a second while I pull up another slide here just quickly. Okay, so this, folks. Okay, one last thing. It's not the end. It doesn't have to be the end. What I am offering everybody who has participated in the AI Evolution series is a free half-hour diagnostic conversation with me. I will be sending out an email to each and every one of you with a link to my calendar if you're interested in continuing the conversation. No matter what topic we discussed, it could be from the very first one all the way to the last one, is something that I'm willing to do and more than happy to discuss. Whether it's a business opportunity or not, or just helping you out on a personal level, right? Just click on that, schedule some time with me, and I'd love to chat with you. So contact information is in this QR code. If you want to just scan that quickly, it has all of my information. But like I said, an email will be going out with my contact information and a link to my calendar. The other thing that we're going to do, as I mentioned at the beginning of this call, is create what we call the AI Exchange. And it's more or less a mastermind group for everybody who has participated in this. We have over 150 registrants and folks that have participated in this. And like I said, I think there's more interest in continuing the conversation. So we're going to create what we call the AI Exchange Mastermind Group. It's sharing ideas, concepts, best practices, lessons learned, all of that. and it'll be a facilitated discussion. It won't be just me speaking. It will be an open Zoom call with a facilitator where we can share our collective intelligence and help move the needle for each of us collectively. So with that said, I'm going to stop the share and open it up to any questions that you may have. Like I said, I'll hang out as long as it takes to answer your questions. So thank you. Okay, ask me, missed the previous sessions. Are those available? Yes, we have a private YouTube channel with all of those available to folks that have registered for the sessions. Will be up within the next 48 hours or so. I will send, along with my calendar, I will put the links of those there. And at some point, probably in a month or so, they'll be public for everybody to see. All right, I had someone just say, hey, thank you very much. I had to bolt. Okay. It was a lot of information, folks. I'm sure you're sitting there like, oh my goodness, a lot to absorb. Like I said, I will share this information with you. You can review it at your leisure. And again, that email is going to go out. Just pick some time with me. Hit me up, whether it's, you can hit me up direct message through LinkedIn or schedule time with me and we can answer any questions that you have. But right now I have a lot of thank yous. So I really appreciate the support, guys, and the positive feedback. That's great. Okay, down to 11:59. I'll hang out for one more minute, and then after that, we'll shut it down. And best of luck to everybody. Appreciate your time and energy, and we'll be talking soon. Again, thank you guys. It's my pleasure. Very good. All right, everybody. Time to go. I don't have any questions, so again, and be in touch. Take care.